Yeah, my story wasn't easy, but I survived being invisible in my own family. And in the end, I proved that sometimes the quietest person in the room has the most powerful voice of all.
When Sarah told me what her grandmother did, I was shocked. What an incredible woman.
My name is Dorothy, and I'm 73 years old. For most of my life, I've been what people call a background character. The kind of person who gets overlooked at family gatherings, whose opinions get dismissed with a wave of the hand, whose presence is tolerated rather than celebrated. But on May 15th, at my granddaughter Sarah's college graduation, all of that changed in a way that nobody saw coming. Let me start from the beginning, because to understand what happened that day, you need to understand the dynamics of my family, particularly my relationship with my daughter-in-law, Patricia. Patricia married my son Michael 25 years ago, and from day one, she made it clear that I was an unwelcome presence in their lives. It wasn't outright hostility. That would have been too obvious. Instead, it was a slow, steady campaign of exclusion disguised as forgetfulness. Birthday parties where my invitation got lost in the mail. Holiday dinners where there mysteriously wasn't enough food prepared. Family photos where I was asked to step aside, just for a minute, and then forgotten about entirely. Over the years, I learned to expect it. I learned to make myself smaller, to speak less, to take up less space. I told myself it didn't matter, that as long as I got to see my grandchildren occasionally, I could endure anything. Sarah was different, though. My granddaughter had always been special to me. Not because she was particularly affectionate, or because she went out of her way to include me, but because she reminded me so much of myself at that age. Quiet, observant, brilliant in a way that people often overlooked. While her parents focused on her older brother Jake's football achievements and her younger sister Emma's pageant wins, Sarah was quietly excelling in her studies, dreaming of becoming a marine biologist. When Sarah got accepted to Stanford University, I was over the moon. I knew how hard she had worked, how many nights she had stayed up studying while her siblings got all the attention and praise. But I also knew that Patricia and Michael were struggling financially. Michael's construction business had taken a hit during the recession, and they had already stretched themselves thin, paying for Jake's college and Emma's competition expenses. I remember the day Sarah came to visit me, about a month before her high school graduation. She was trying so hard to be brave, but I could see the tears threatening to spill over as she told me she might have to turn down Stanford and go to community college instead. "Grandma Dorothy," she said, sitting on my old floral couch, "I know it's selfish to be upset about this. Community college is a good option, and Mom says I can transfer after 2 years if the money situation improves. But I worked so hard for Stanford, and they have the best marine biology program in the country. My heart broke for her. This brilliant, deserving girl was being forced to give up her dreams because of circumstances beyond her control. That's when I made a decision that I didn't tell anyone about. Not even Sarah. I had been living modestly for decades, saving every penny from my late husband's pension and my small part-time job at the local library. I had almost $200,000 sitting in various accounts, money I had been planning to leave to my grandchildren when I died. But what good would that money do Sarah after I was gone? She needed it now, while her dreams were still within reach. So I did something I had never done before in my entire life. I went behind my family's back. I contacted Stanford's financial aid office directly, identified myself as Sarah's grandmother, and arranged to pay her full tuition for all 4 years. The total came to just over $160,000. I wired the money that same day. I made them promise to keep my identity as the benefactor confidential until Sarah's graduation day. I told them I would reveal myself then, in whatever way felt appropriate. I'm not sure why I chose to wait. Maybe I wanted to see if my family's treatment of me would change on its own. Or maybe I just wanted to have one last surprise up my sleeve. The next few weeks were agonizing. I watched Sarah struggle with her decision, saw Patricia and Michael having heated discussions about money when they thought no one was listening. I wanted so badly to tell Sarah what I'd done, to see the relief and joy on her face. But I forced myself to wait. Then came the phone call that changed everything. It was Sarah, sobbing with happiness, barely able to get the words out. "Grandma Dorothy, you'll never believe it. Stanford called. They said an anonymous donor has paid my full tuition. All 4 years. I'm going to Stanford. I can't believe it's really happening." I felt tears streaming down my face as I listened to her joy. This was why I had done it. Not for recognition or gratitude, but to hear that pure happiness in my granddaughter's voice. "That's wonderful, sweetheart," I managed to say. "You deserve every bit of this." The next 4 years flew by. I watched Sarah thrive at Stanford through her social media posts and the occasional phone call. She was president of the Marine Biology Club. She did research internships. She made the dean's list every semester. Meanwhile, Patricia took full credit for Sarah's success, telling anyone who would listen about how she and Michael had found a way to make Stanford possible for their daughter. I didn't correct her. I had gotten what I wanted. Sarah was living her dream. But as Sarah's graduation approached, I found myself thinking more and more about that money I had spent. Not regretting it, but wondering what my life might look like now that most of my savings were gone. I was getting older, more fragile. My arthritis was getting worse, and I had been putting off some medical procedures because of the cost. For the first time, I allowed myself to feel just a tiny bit resentful that no one in my family had any idea what I'd sacrificed for Sarah's education. The graduation invitation arrived in the mail 3 days before the ceremony. Not mailed to me directly, of course. Sarah had given it to Patricia to pass along, and Patricia had forgotten to give it to me until the last minute. It was clear they expected me to decline due to the short notice. "Oh, Dorothy," Patricia said when she finally called me. "I'm so sorry I forgot to give you this earlier. I know it's last minute, but Sarah's graduation is this Saturday. There's going to be a big family dinner afterward at that fancy restaurant downtown. You know, Antonio's? I'm not sure if there will be room at our reservation, but you're welcome to come to the ceremony itself." I could hear the insincerity in her voice. She was hoping I would say no, that I would gracefully bow out and leave them to celebrate as a family without the inconvenience of including me. "I'll be there," I said simply, "both for the ceremony and for dinner." There was a pause. "Oh, well, I'll see if I can add another person to the reservation." I spent the next 3 days preparing for what I somehow knew would be a significant day. I went to the beauty parlor and had my hair done properly for the first time in years. I bought a new dress. Not expensive, but nice enough for such an important occasion. And I made a phone call to Stanford's alumni office to confirm some details about their donor recognition policies. Saturday morning dawned bright and clear. I drove myself to Stanford's campus, marveling at how beautiful everything looked. The graduation ceremony was being held in the outdoor stadium, with thousands of proud family members filling the seats. I found my assigned seat and was surprised to see that I was sitting by myself, several rows behind where the rest of my family was seated. Patricia had arranged the seating, of course, and she had made sure I was far enough away that I wouldn't interfere with their family photos or conversations. From my distant perch, I watched Michael, Patricia, Jake, and Emma chatting excitedly as they waited for the ceremony to begin. Patricia was dressed to the nines, clearly enjoying playing the role of the proud mother. Michael kept checking his phone, probably dealing with work issues even on his daughter's graduation day. Jake looked bored, like he'd rather be anywhere else. And Emma was taking selfies. None of them turned around to acknowledge me or invite me to join them. I might as well have been invisible. The ceremony began, and I felt my heart swell with pride as I watched hundreds of graduates file onto the field in their caps and gowns. When I spotted Sarah among them, I had to wipe away tears. She looked so confident, so accomplished, so ready to take on the world. The speeches were lovely, full of hope and inspiration for the future. Then came the moment I'd been waiting for, the individual recognition of graduates. Sarah's name was called, and she walked across the stage to receive her diploma. From my seat in the back, I stood up and cheered, probably louder than anyone else in the stadium. After the ceremony, families gathered on the field to take photos and congratulate their graduates. I made my way through the crowd trying to find Sarah and the others. When I finally spotted them, they were in the middle of an elaborate photo session, with Patricia directing everyone's poses like she was a professional photographer. I hung back, waiting for an appropriate moment to approach. But as the photo session went on and on, it became clear that no one was planning to include me. I watched as they took dozens of shots. Sarah with her parents, Sarah with her siblings, Sarah with just her mother, Sarah with just her father, the whole family without me. Finally, Sarah noticed me standing awkwardly to the side. "Grandma Dorothy," she called out, breaking away from the group to give me a hug. "I'm so glad you made it. Can you believe I actually graduated from Stanford?" "I couldn't be prouder of you, sweetheart," I said, holding her tight. "You've accomplished something truly amazing." Patricia appeared beside us, wearing a tight smile. "Dorothy, we should probably head to the restaurant soon. You know how busy these places get on graduation day." The restaurant was Antonio's, an upscale Italian place that I'd heard about but never been to. When we arrived, I realized that Patricia had been hoping I wouldn't come. There were exactly 6 chairs at our table, and they were all occupied by Michael, Patricia, Jake, Emma, Sarah, and Sarah's boyfriend Tom, whom I was meeting for the first time. "Oh," Patricia said with exaggerated surprise. "It looks like they didn't have space for a 7th chair. Dorothy, maybe you could see if they have a small table nearby." The hostess, who had overheard this exchange, looked horrified. "Ma'am, we can absolutely add another chair to your table. It's no problem at all." But the damage was done. Even with an extra chair squeezed in, I was clearly the unwanted addition to an otherwise perfect family celebration. I was seated at the end of the table, where it was difficult for me to participate in the conversation. As the meal progressed, I watched my family celebrate Sarah's achievement with increasingly mixed feelings. Everyone was so happy, so proud, so full of plans for Sarah's future. Patricia regaled the table with stories about how challenging it had been to make Sarah's Stanford education possible. "You know, it wasn't easy," Patricia was saying, gesturing dramatically with her wine glass. "Michael and I had to make so many sacrifices, had to get creative with financing, had to call in favors. But we knew Sarah deserved the best education possible, and we were determined to make it happen." Michael nodded along. "Patricia handled all the financial stuff. She's always been good with that kind of thing. Somehow she found a way to make it work." Jake chimed in. "Yeah, Mom, you're like a miracle worker or something. I still don't understand how you pulled it off." I sat there listening to this fabrication, feeling my face grow hot with a mixture of anger and hurt. They were not only taking credit for something they hadn't done, but they were doing it while literally ignoring my presence at the table. Sarah, bless her heart, tried to include me in the conversation. "Grandma Dorothy, what did you think of the ceremony? Wasn't it beautiful?" I started to answer, but Patricia immediately interrupted. "Sarah, tell Tom about your internship plans for the summer. He's going to be so impressed." And just like that, I was dismissed again. This pattern continued throughout the meal. Every time Sarah or even Tom tried to engage me in conversation, Patricia or Michael would redirect the discussion elsewhere. It was as if I didn't exist. But the final straw came when Patricia started talking about Sarah's future plans. "The best part," she said, "is that Sarah will graduate debt-free. While all her friends are going to be struggling with student loans for decades, our Sarah will be able to start her career with a clean slate. That's the gift Michael and I have given her. Financial freedom." I felt something snap inside me. These people had spent 4 years taking credit for my sacrifice, and now they were going to sit here and lie about it to Sarah's face while actively excluding me from the conversation. I cleared my throat. "Actually," I said, my voice carrying more clearly than it had in years, "I think there's something Sarah should know about her tuition." The table went quiet. Patricia looked at me with alarm, as if she sensed that her carefully constructed narrative was about to crumble. "Dorothy," she said with a warning tone, "what are you talking about?" I stood up slowly, my chair scraping against the floor. Every eye at the table was on me now, along with several curious diners at nearby tables. "Sarah," I said, looking directly at my granddaughter, 4 years ago, when you thought you were going to have to turn down Stanford because of the cost, I made a decision. I contacted the university directly and paid your entire tuition. All 4 years, $160,000. The silence that followed was deafening. Sarah's face went through about 5 different emotions in the span of 10 seconds. Confusion, realization, shock, and then something that looked like a mixture of gratitude and horror. "Grandma Dorothy," she whispered, "what are you saying?" "I'm saying that your parents didn't find some mysterious way to pay for Stanford. There was no creative financing, no calling in favors, no sacrifices on their part. I used almost all of my life savings to pay for your education because I believed in your dreams, and I wanted to see you succeed." Patricia's face had gone completely white. "Dorothy, this is not the time or place for—" "Actually," I continued, my voice growing stronger with each word, "this is exactly the time and place. Sarah deserves to know the truth about who made her education possible. She deserves to know that while you've been taking credit for her success, the person who actually sacrificed for her has been sitting ignored at the end of the table." Michael found his voice. "Mom, even if that's true, you should have discussed this with us." "Discussed what?" I asked, turning to face him. "Discussed the fact that your wife has spent 4 years lying about how Sarah's tuition got paid? Discussed the fact that you've both been taking credit for something you didn't do while treating me like I'm invisible?" The restaurant had gone completely quiet around us. I realized that our family drama had become a very public spectacle. But I found that I didn't care. For the first time in decades, I was speaking my truth. And it felt incredible. Sarah stood up abruptly, tears streaming down her face. "Grandma Dorothy, is this really true? You paid for Stanford? Every penny, sweetheart. I wanted you to have your dreams." She came around the table and threw her arms around me, sobbing. "I can't believe it. All this time I thought Mom and Dad had somehow managed to. I can't believe you did that for me. You're my granddaughter," I said simply. "I love you, and I wanted to see you succeed." Patricia finally exploded. "Dorothy, how dare you make a scene like this? This is Sarah's graduation day, and you're ruining it with your need for attention." "My need for attention?" I asked, incredulous. "Patricia, you've spent 4 years taking credit for my sacrifice while excluding me from family events, dismissing my opinions, and treating me like an inconvenience. You invited me to sit at the back of the graduation ceremony. You tried to get me to sit at a separate table tonight, and you've spent this entire meal talking over me and ignoring me. And you think I'm the one with a problem? You should have told us what you did," Michael said weakly. "Why?" I asked. "So you could have stopped me. So you could have found a way to take credit for that too." I kept quiet because I wanted Sarah to succeed, not because I wanted recognition. But I'm not going to sit here and listen to you lie about sacrifices you never made while treating me like I don't matter. Jake, who had been sitting in stunned silence, finally spoke up. "Grandma Dorothy, you really paid for all of Sarah's college?" "Yes, Jake. I spent almost all of my retirement savings because I believed your sister deserved the chance to pursue her dreams." Emma, who was only 16 and probably overwhelmed by the adult drama happening around her, asked, "Does that mean you don't have money anymore?" It was an innocent question, but it hit at the heart of something I'd been trying not to think about. "It means I don't have much left," I admitted. "But it was worth it to see Sarah graduate today." Sarah looked stricken. "Grandma Dorothy, you shouldn't have spent all your money on me. What about your future? What about your medical bills and everything? Don't you worry about me, sweetheart. You focus on your career and your dreams. That's what I wanted this money to accomplish." Patricia, who had been whispering frantically to Michael, stood up with a forced smile. "Well, this has certainly been an interesting revelation. Dorothy, we appreciate what you did. We really do. But perhaps we should discuss the details privately, as a family, rather than making a scene in public." "No," I said firmly. "I'm done with private discussions where my contributions get minimized and forgotten. I'm done being invisible. Sarah needed to know the truth, and now she does." Tom, who had been looking increasingly uncomfortable throughout this entire exchange, cleared his throat. "Maybe I should go wait in the car." "No, Tom," Sarah said, wiping her eyes. "You should stay. This is important." She turned back to me. "Grandma Dorothy, I don't know what to say. I feel terrible that I didn't know. That I've been thanking the wrong people all this time. You don't need to feel terrible about anything," I told her. "You worked hard. You earned your place at Stanford, and you made the most of the opportunity. That's all I ever wanted." Patricia tried one more time to regain control of the situation. "Dorothy, while we appreciate your generosity, I think you're being unfair to Michael and me. We've supported Sarah in countless ways throughout her college years. Have you?" I asked. "Because from what I've observed, you've supported yourselves in taking credit for her success while doing very little to actually help her succeed." The truth of that statement hung in the air. Over the past 4 years, I had watched Patricia and Michael prioritize Jake's sports and Emma's pageants while expecting Sarah to manage her college experience independently. They had attended exactly one parents' weekend at Stanford, had rarely asked about her studies, and had contributed nothing to her living expenses beyond what the meal plan covered. Sarah seemed to be realizing this too. "Mom, Dad, Grandma Dorothy's right. You didn't really support me through college. I worked part-time jobs to pay for my textbooks and personal expenses. I took out small loans for my living expenses. You guys were always too busy with Jake's games or Emma's competitions to really be involved in what I was doing. That's not fair," Patricia protested. "We were proud of you. Being proud is different from being supportive," Sarah said quietly. "And taking credit for someone else's financial sacrifice is just wrong." Michael seemed to deflate. "Mom, I had no idea you had done this. Why didn't you tell us?" "Because I knew you would try to stop me," I said honestly. "And because I wanted to see if you would ever acknowledge my contributions to this family on your own. You never did." "We acknowledge you," Patricia said, but it sounded hollow even to her. "Do you?" I asked. "When was the last time you called me just to see how I was doing? When was the last time you included me in family plans from the beginning instead of as an afterthought? When was the last time you asked for my opinion on something important?" The silence that followed was answer enough. Sarah was looking back and forth between her parents and me, and I could see her processing years of family dynamics with new eyes. "You guys have been pretty awful to Grandma Dorothy, haven't you?" "Sarah," Patricia said with a warning tone. "That's not how you should speak to your parents." "Actually, Mom, I think it's exactly how I should speak to parents who have been lying to me for 4 years while mistreating the person who actually made my education possible." I felt a surge of pride watching my granddaughter stand up for herself, and for me. This was the Sarah I had always known she could be. Confident, principled, and unafraid to speak the truth. But I also didn't want this day to be entirely about family conflict. This was supposed to be Sarah's celebration, and I had already disrupted it enough. "Sarah," I said, "I want you to know that telling you the truth wasn't about causing problems between you and your parents. I just couldn't sit here and listen to them take credit for something they didn't do, while treating me like I don't exist. You deserve to know who actually supported your dreams." "I'm glad you told me," she said firmly. "I'm glad I know the truth." Patricia made one last attempt to salvage the situation. "Dorothy, we can discuss some kind of arrangement to pay you back." "I don't want to be paid back," I interrupted. "That money was a gift to Sarah, not a loan to you. But I do want some basic respect and acknowledgement of what I did." "Of course," Michael said quickly. "Mom, we're grateful for what you did. We really are." But even as he said it, I could see that nothing had fundamentally changed. They were sorry they had been caught, not sorry for how they had treated me. Sarah, however, was different. She pulled out her phone and started making a call. "What are you doing?" Patricia asked nervously. "I'm calling an Uber," Sarah said. "I'm going home with Grandma Dorothy. I want to spend the rest of my graduation day with the person who actually made it possible." "Sarah, don't be ridiculous," Patricia protested. "We had plans for the evening, and Tom came all the way here to celebrate with you." Sarah looked at Tom. "I'm sorry, but I need to do this. Can we celebrate tomorrow instead?" Tom, who seemed relieved to escape the family drama, nodded immediately. Of course. Call me later, okay? Sarah, you're overreacting, Michael said. Your grandmother made a generous gesture and we're grateful. But that doesn't mean you need to abandon your family. I'm not abandoning my family, Sarah replied. I'm choosing to spend time with the family member who has actually been there for me. As we waited for the Uber, I found myself feeling a mixture of emotions. I was proud of Sarah for standing up for what was right. But I was also sad that it had come to this. I had never intended to cause a rift in the family. But then I looked around the table at the faces staring back at me. Patricia's anger, Michael's discomfort, Jake's confusion, Emma's wide-eyed shock. And I realized that the rift had always been there. I had just been too polite to acknowledge it. When the Uber arrived, Sarah and I gathered our things to leave. As we walked toward the door, I heard Patricia call out behind us. Dorothy, you've ruined Sarah's graduation day. I hope you're happy. I turned back to face her. Actually, Patricia, I think I've made it honest for the first time in 4 years. The ride to my house was quiet at first. Sarah sat beside me, staring out the window, processing everything that had happened. Finally, she spoke. Grandma Dorothy, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I didn't know what you had done. And I'm sorry for how my parents have been treating you. You don't need to apologize for them, sweetheart. But I do, she insisted. I should have noticed how they excluded you from things. I should have stood up for you before now. You were focused on your studies and your future. That's exactly what you should have been doing. But still, she said, I feel terrible that you spent all your savings on me, and no one even acknowledged it. We rode the rest of the way in comfortable silence. When we got to my small house, Sarah looked around with new eyes, as if she was seeing it for the first time. Grandma Dorothy, is this really all you have left? My house was modest, a 2-bedroom ranch that I'd bought with my husband 40 years ago. It was clean and comfortable, but definitely showing its age. The furniture was old but well-maintained, and there were no expensive decorations or appliances. It's enough for me, I said honestly. I don't need much. But what about when you get older? What about medical bills? I'll figure it out as it comes, I said. I don't regret spending that money on your education, Sarah. Watching you graduate today was worth every penny. She hugged me then, and we both started crying again. I love you, Grandma Dorothy. And I'm going to make sure that money wasn't wasted. I'm going to do something amazing with my life. You already have, sweetheart. You already have. We spent the rest of the evening looking through photo albums and talking about Sarah's college experiences. She told me about her research projects, her internships, her friends, her plans for graduate school. It was the kind of conversation we should have been having all along, but Patricia and Michael had never made space for. As the evening wound down, Sarah brought up something that had been bothering her. Grandma Dorothy, I want to do something to help you. Maybe I can get a job after graduation and start paying you back. Absolutely not, I said firmly. That money was a gift, not a loan. You use your education to build a career and a life for yourself. That's what I wanted it to accomplish. But it's not fair that you sacrificed everything for me while my parents took all the credit. Life isn't always fair, sweetheart. But sometimes we get to choose how we respond to unfairness. Today, I chose to tell the truth instead of staying quiet. That felt good. I'm proud of you for speaking up, she said. I know that wasn't easy. It hadn't been easy. But it had been necessary. The next few days were interesting, to say the least. Michael called twice to try to smooth things over, but his apologies felt half-hearted and obligatory. Patricia sent a text message that was clearly meant to be conciliatory, but came across as passive-aggressive. Dorothy, we hope you understand that we were just surprised by your revelation. We appreciate what you did for Sarah. Jake surprised me by calling directly. Grandma Dorothy, I wanted to apologize for how we treated you at dinner, and I wanted to thank you for what you did for Sarah. That was really cool of you. Emma was too young to fully understand the adult dynamics at play, but she sent me a sweet card that said, "Thank you for helping Sarah go to college. You're the best grandma ever." But the most meaningful response came from Sarah herself. 3 days after graduation, she showed up at my house with a large framed photograph. "I had this made," she said, showing me a beautiful professional photo of the two of us from graduation day. I didn't even remember when it had been taken. But there we were, Sarah in her cap and gown, both of us beaming with pride and joy. "Sarah, it's beautiful. I want you to have it," she said. "So you can remember that what you did mattered. So you can remember that someone noticed and appreciated your sacrifice." She had also brought a folder full of documents. "What's all this?" I asked. "I've been doing research," she said. "I found some programs that might help you with healthcare costs as you get older. And I've been looking into reverse mortgages and other financial options that might give you more security without requiring me to pay you back directly." "Sarah, you don't need to—" "Yes, I do," she said. "You took care of me when I needed it most. Now it's my turn to take care of you." Over the following weeks, Sarah made good on that promise. She helped me apply for senior assistance programs I hadn't known existed. She researched Medicare supplement plans that would cover more of my medical expenses. She even helped me get a part-time job at the university library, which came with excellent benefits and allowed me to feel useful again. But more importantly, she made sure I was included in her life going forward. She called me twice a week just to chat. She invited me to visit her new apartment. She brought Tom over for dinner so I could get to know him properly. She made me feel valued and appreciated in a way I hadn't felt in years. The rest of the family took longer to come around. Patricia remained cool toward me for months, clearly still resentful that I had disrupted her narrative about Sarah's success. But gradually even she began to acknowledge what I'd done. If not graciously, then at least openly. Michael made more of an effort to include me in family events, though I could tell it was somewhat forced at first. Jake started visiting me occasionally, usually when he needed a quiet place to study. Even Emma began calling me more often, sharing stories about school and friends. But the biggest change was in how I saw myself. For decades, I had accepted being invisible, being dismissed, being treated as an afterthought. I had told myself it didn't matter as long as I could maintain some connection to my family. Standing up at that graduation dinner, telling the truth about what I had done, demanding recognition for my sacrifice. It wasn't just about the money I'd spent on Sarah's education. It was about claiming my place in my own family. It was about refusing to be invisible anymore. 6 months after graduation, Sarah got accepted to a graduate program in marine biology at UC San Diego. When she called to tell me the news, she said something that brought tears to my eyes. "Grandma Dorothy, none of this would have been possible without you. Not just the money, but the example you set. You taught me that sometimes you have to stand up for yourself, even when it's uncomfortable. You taught me that our contributions matter, even when other people try to minimize them. I'm proud of you, sweetheart. I'm proud of you too, Grandma Dorothy. You're the strongest person I know." As I hung up the phone, I thought about how much had changed since that day at Antonio's restaurant. I was still living in the same small house, still getting by on a modest income, still dealing with the aches and pains of getting older. But I was no longer invisible. I was no longer allowing other people to diminish my worth or dismiss my contributions. Sarah's graduation day had been a turning point. Not just for her, but for me. It was the day I stopped being a background character in my own family's story and started being a protagonist in my own life. Sometimes people ask me if I regret spending so much of my savings on Sarah's education. The answer's always the same. Not for a single second. That money gave Sarah the foundation she needed to build an incredible career in life. But more than that, it gave me the opportunity to prove to myself and to my family that I am someone worth noticing, someone worth respecting, someone whose contributions matter. Yeah, my story wasn't easy. I spent decades being overlooked and undervalued by the people who should have cherished me most. But I survived being invisible. And in the end, I found my voice in the most powerful way possible, by using it to change someone else's life for the better. And that, I think, is a pretty good legacy to leave behind.